I used to work as a waitress at a fancy restaurant in Boston's North End. If you don't know, the North End is like a little slice of Italy in the city. It's packed with great restaurants, tourists, and all sorts of animals that have learned to survive on the scraps they find on the streets. Our restaurant was really small, with only 32 seats. It was cozy, but it made every shift feel special. Now, let me tell you about my favorite shift ever. It was a busy Saturday night, and our restaurant was packed for a 40th birthday party. All 32 seats were filled with people laughing and having a great time. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a rat darted into the dining room. Everyone saw it and chaos erupted. People yelled, women shrieked, and some even jumped onto their chairs. I saw women kicking their feet up onto their boyfriends' laps, screaming. There was no mistaking it. This was a rat, not a big mouse. It was unmistakable. The rat was running wildly around the room, dodging between people's legs and hiding behind the computer stands and under the wine rack. It was causing total chaos. 2 people were so grossed out that they got up and left. Meanwhile, all the men in the room thought they could catch it, so they started trying to chase it down. Just then, our dishwasher came running up from the kitchen with a broom, trying to join in on the action. One of the guests was brave or crazy and grabbed the rat by the tail with his bare hands. But the rat fought back and bit him hard enough to make him bleed. He yelped in pain and dropped the rat, which made everyone scream even more. I rushed over to try and get him a Band-Aid, but he refused. Now, he was on a mission to get revenge on that rat, and he had a battle scar to prove it. We called in the firemen from across the street to save the day, and boy, did they come prepared. 3 firefighters showed up in full gear with boots, a grappling hook, an ice pick, and a weird tool they called the stomping stick, which was basically a 2x4 on a pole. They crawled through the dining room like they were in a war zone, searching under tables and chairs for the sneaky rat. You'd think there was a fire somewhere, but nope, these brave firefighters were on a mission to catch a pesky rodent in the name of public health. It was like they were glorified cat catchers. Then, the guy who got bitten by the rat took matters into his own hands literally. He stomped on the rat with his boot, like he was crushing a bug on the sidewalk. The rat was flat, squashed into the floor, and definitely dead. But that's not all. He also managed to smash an entire shelf of wine glasses in the process. And what did he do next? He calmly retied his boot, washed his hands, and went back to eating his dinner like nothing had happened. Talk about a cool customer. The room erupted in cheers and applause. People started giving speeches about how the rat had brought them all together, and how they never knew they needed something like this to unite them. I was still trying to do my job and keep everything under control, but it was getting crazy. Then, one of the guests pointed to the squash rat and said, "Oh, was that the chef?" And to my surprise, people started laughing and saying, yes, it was. I couldn't believe it. The rat had become the life of the party. We tried to convince the rat killer to go to the hospital and get a rabies shot, just to be safe. But he refused, saying he was fine. Instead, he took pride in his heroic act, like he had saved the day. He was like a humble superhero saying, "No need, I'm good." We were all amazed by his bravery and nonchalance, considering he had just been bitten by a rat and had squashed it with his boot. That wild night happened about 3 years ago. Since then, I've often thought about the rat stomper and wondered if his bite would trigger another global pandemic. Luckily, it seems we dodged a bullet. Everything turned out okay, and no pandemic came from it. I still look back on that crazy night with fond memories, and I'm grateful that the rat stomper's bravery or craziness didn't have more serious consequences. Story 2. My wife lit some incense sticks. It was a lovely summer in southwestern Norway. I had rented a cozy summer home, got some chickens, and planted a garden. My wife, who's from Turkey, came to visit me. She brought some incense sticks with her to help purify the house and get rid of any negative energy. I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to spirituality and alternative ideas. One evening, my wife walked around the house with a small metal box. Inside, she had some incense and coal from the fireplace. As she moved around, she waved the box, letting the smoke swirl everywhere. I thought to myself, wow, it smells like hashish in here, so I decided to check my own stash. I opened my stash box, which looks similar to the incense box, but it was empty. Then I glanced at the other box and saw that the incense was still inside. I looked over at my wife, and she seemed completely unaware of what was going on. She had no idea that my stash was missing. We were far from my dealer, and I stood there watching my wife float around the room, looking like a clueless fairy. Every cloud of smoke she released meant I was losing more money and more of my stash. Seconds ticked by, turning into minutes. I thought, should I stop her? Can I still save my hashish? But in that moment, I realized it was too late. There was nothing left to save. I wouldn't be listening to reggae music tonight, enjoying my stash. It was all gone. At first, I didn't say a word. I sat down calmly, letting her finish her ritual. I didn't want to upset the spirit she was trying to connect with. Some time passed, and then I asked her, "Hey, what's that incense made of?" She explained, and I asked, "Do you have any more?" She said no, so I told her to go check again. She came back with the 2 boxes, looking confused, and we shared an awkward laugh.
Story 3.
She was playing us both, so we teamed up. I met this girl in high school, and she seemed perfect. We started dating a few months after we met, and everything was great. After graduation, we chose to go to different colleges in the same town. I thought it was awesome because we could still spend lots of time together. But when our first semester started, she began to talk to me less and less. We still spent time together, but we did everything less often. We talked on the phone less, texted less, and had fewer date nights. At first, I thought it was because we were both really busy with school. But then, she posted a picture of a Starbucks coffee on her social media story, and I noticed a guy's shadow in the background. It looked like she was hanging out with someone else. This wouldn't have been a big deal, but earlier that day, I had asked her what she was planning to do, and she told me she was going to Starbucks to get coffee and study with a female friend. So why did she lie to me about it? I did some more digging and found a random guy's Instagram account. He had tagged her in a post from a month ago, and the caption was really suspicious. It made it sound like she was his girlfriend. I sent the guy a message and asked him to meet up. At first, he was confused and defensive, but eventually he agreed. We met at the same Starbucks where she took that picture. When I told him about my history with her, his jaw dropped in shock. He said he thought he was her boyfriend. I explained to him that she was probably cheating on both of us. He was stunned. I wanted to break up with her immediately, thinking that if we both did it one after the other, it would really hurt her. But the other guy had a cleverer plan. He said if we just suddenly broke up with her, she'd probably just move on and forget about it. Instead, he suggested we get her to confess her love for each of us individually, record it, and then send the recordings to each other and break up with her afterwards. I thought this idea was hilarious. He showed me an app called Reclip, which allowed us to secretly save audio recordings after they happened. He suggested we use it to get the evidence we needed. I agreed and went ahead with the plan. She often said cheesy romantic things to me, so it didn't take long for her to confess her love for me again. When she did, I quickly saved the audio using the app and sent it to the other guy. He did the same when she professed her love to him. Once we had each other's recordings, we sent them to her and blocked her on all our social media and messaging apps. She tried to reach out to me in person and even went as far as contacting me through Facebook Marketplace. I was selling a digital camera at the time, but I stuck to my word and ignored her. I didn't respond to any of her attempts to contact me.